Hello again. We're moving forward now with our beginners section of the Trader Academy on top-rated forexbrokers.com with strategies on how to use the daily pivot. I'd like to explain here what a pivot means and what the main use of it is, which is obviously to find support and resistance. For example, let's assume that you are bullish on a currency pair and you want to buy, but you don't want to buy at market. You want to find the best place to go long. Then how about waiting for the market to come to a support level and then to buy that support level for your target? Therefore, you get a better entry. Some traders use scaling techniques. So what does a scaling technique mean? During a scaling technique, if you want to buy one lot of a currency pair, let's take this one, the US dollar, Canadian dollar on the 4-hour time frame. If you want to buy one lot, you won't buy directly at the market at 1.2572. You can, of course, but if you want to scale into a position or to gain a better moving average for your one lot, then you will split the one lot into 4 different parts, like 0.25 or a quarter of a lot. And you can use any dip into a support to go long. To do that, daily pivots help traders to achieve this. The problem with the daily pivot is that the indicator does not exist on the MetaTrader, or it doesn't come with the default settings. You can find it on the internet by Googling and download it and simply upload it as a custom indicator. I won't do that for now, I'll use a different platform, but the idea is exactly the same. So let's go to Add Indicator. We'll look at the overlap studies, namely trend indicators. These are applied on the screen, and then we go to the pivot. Take a look at what happens when I click Pivot 2. We already have these coloured lines on the right side. We click Add, and the indicator appears on the screen. Now make sure you understand that this indicator doesn't change if you change the time frame. It is the daily chart. You can see values that are bigger than the hourly time. If you go on the hourly charts, the levels won't change. So let's see where we are. These are the daily pivots for the current day, even although this is the 4-hour chart for the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Let's zoom in and see what these lines represent. Zoom in. So, the current price on the US dollar, Canadian dollar is 1.2572, correct? So we have the daily pivot, which is 1.25383, which means when the price hits the pivot here, it is in a state of equilibrium. It is at the daily pivot, and all eyes should be on what the next move is. If you were to be bearish, then everything above the pivot represents resistance. So you have the first layer of resistance, R1, which is 26.14, the second layer of resistance, R2, and even the third layer of resistance, R3. Below the pivot, you have 3 layers of support, S1, S2, and S3. Of course, if you are to scale into a position like I mentioned earlier, and you want to trade bullish, and you want to buy one lot, so let's zoom up. Let's see the daily chart based on a different analysis, like the Elliott wave analysis, or simply from a fundamental or economic news that is supposed to come today. I am bullish. I want to buy the US dollar, Canadian dollar. I may decide to either buy limit, namely to wait for the market to dip into support to go long, or to buy stop, namely to buy from a higher level. Therefore, before the important economic release that I mentioned, what I do is I place a pending order. Where? On the daily support or resistance levels. If I'm bullish on the longer term, this is a daily pivot, but if I'm bullish for the next 2 or 3 months, according to price and time with Elliott Wave's analysis, the US dollar and Canadian dollar should reach 1.30 and now deals at 1.2570. I will use the opportunity given by any dip into S1 to buy a quarter of a lot. And if it goes into S2, I'll buy a half of a lot. And if it goes into S3, I'll buy the rest of the lot. So I use the support provided by the pivot level to scale into a longer term position. Intraday traders. What does it mean, intraday trading? It means traders that buy and sell during a trading day. They don't keep positions overnight. In this way, they avoid negative swaps and unnecessary commissions and so on that comes with rollover positions overnight. So what these guys do is, when the market comes to resistance, they sell for pivot. If it comes to support, they buy for pivot. If it comes to S2, they buy for S1 stop loss at S3, and so on. It is important to note that these three levels, R1, R2, and R3, they grow in an algorithmic scale, namely the market. It is easier for the market to reach R1 than to reach R2. It is not the same amount of pips. So for the pivot to reach R1, which is easier than reaching R2, even though the distance between R1 and R2 is smaller than the one from the pivot until R1. So these are two approaches to using a pivot. It offers a very viewable state of the market, and especially when it comes to algorithmic trading or to high frequency trading, when you want to fade the move, then they are very helpful in finding the right place to put your pending orders. Thank you very much for being here. Now let's move on to another interesting indicator, the basic strategies for the Ichimoku Kinko Hyo, or the Kumo cloud.